Brent Beard on the Peterbrook Chocolate Theater studio line. Brent, we were talking about Mike Martin. That's got to be a lot of the buzz down there, given that this is his final season as the skipper of the Florida State Seminoles and taking his last club out to Omaha one more time.
Yeah, that is the story of the week here, frankly, with him being able to go. And I really, Trav, the amazing thing about them is that they were among the last four in when on Selection Monday on Memorial Day, and they had a stretch at one point in the season out of 20 games. They were 7-13, so they looked like they were dead in the water. But it's really amazing what they have done this season. Deserve a lot of credit for that. So, but Trav, I do wonder on Selection Sunday if that had not been Martin's last season, it really kind of makes you wonder, A, if they had gotten in, and B, they've got their hands full with this hot-headed Arkansas bunch coming up on Saturday, too.
Yeah, at the time, it had the feel of sort of a career achievement bid for the Seminoles in relation to Mike Martin, a salute to Mike Martin. But here's what you got to say for the Seminoles, Brent. They have laid to waste SEC clubs on this run, and didn't need an if necessary game against Georgia in the Bulldogs' own regional there, and hammered Georgia in 2 games there in Athens, and then goes to and barbecue for LSU out at the box over the weekend. So it just goes to show, we talked about this in the past, more so in relation with probably the NCAA men's basketball tournament or the women's tournament for that matter. Just make the field. If you can just get in,
right,
who knows what can happen from that standpoint. Just look at Auburn for more on that too. Kind of the same type of team almost as Florida State.
Yeah, they really are. And Florida State, first team in 21 years of super regionals to beat 2 SEC teams on the road, which is just absolutely amazing. Easily travel, wouldn't it? The best Georgia club we've seen, you can almost say in decades at this point, and then an LSU team. Now, I know LSU fans weren't happy about that, but at the same, and listen, at the same time, if LSU wins that game, you've got an amazing 5 SEC teams in the College World Series. 4 is pretty impressive, certainly itself. So it should be a great weekend of games coming up.
Paul Maneri, the baseball coach at LSU, he's almost got a Bill Curry at Alabama feel to him, the poor guy. Somewhat on the heels of Skip Bertman out there at LSU, kind of an impossible follow, although I believe there was Smoke Laval that was there in between all of that. But for as long as he's been there now, just doesn't feel like Paul Maneri has been entirely embraced by what can be a very complex, I guess one way to put it, fan base there with LSU. Hey, Brent, let's talk some college football with you. Reading your notes this week, it looks like the CBS and SEC relationship might be up in the air coming up here not too far in the distant future. If it is to stay intact, it sounds like CBS better be ready to write a very large check.
That money they're paying now seems, I won't say pocket change, Trav, but they're paying $55 million now. So what are they going to be paying when this new contract comes up? ESPN's paying $2 billion annually for Monday Night Football alone. So, and then the last year, CBS, the highest rated regular season for the 10th consecutive year with the SEC, 13% increase. For them to stay together, there's going to be a whole lot more money needs to be changed.
We've got, speaking of changing hands with money, we've got some early lines. We've got more early lines for the 2019 college football season. I see where Florida is a 7.5-point fave over Miami on August the 24th in Orlando. South Carolina is a 7.5-point favorite over North Carolina the opening weekend there in Charlotte. And we now know the Alabama Crimson Tide favored by 31.5 over Duke. Any of those lines, or maybe another one or two that stands out to you as we look ahead to that first week or so of the college football season?
Trev, that Florida line I just saw a few minutes ago actually is up to 8 now. Yeah. So that is getting bigger, and I'm just wondering if that instability at quarterback Miami, how much that's feeding into this, for they really don't know who it's going to be. At this point, I'm just wondering, Trav, is that going to be double digits coming up by the end of media days, maybe?
It could be. I'm a little surprised it opened at 7.5, only got to 8. How about Auburn? 2.5-point favorite over Oregon in Arlington, Texas. You a little surprised by that one, considering that the Tigers are going through a quarterback change? Yeah,
I really am, frankly. But I'm just wondering, Travis, Vegas like that Auburn defensive line in line of scrimmage more than they like Justin Herbert at Oregon as their quarterback. I'm just wondering how much of a difference there is in both those two positions for that game.
I think there's a couple of credibility issues in play there. First of all, I think conference certainly is huge. Mm-hmm. Some credit given to Auburn coming from not only the SEC, but the Western Division of the Southeastern Conference. And whatever you think of Gus Malzahn, I'm guessing that the handicappers out there view Gus Malzahn in a little brighter light than they do, say, Mario Cristobal.
Probably, yeah. Although Cristobal is coming on, I give him a lot of credit. I mean, he's doing a good job recruiting. You certainly hear that he's got a better handle on that program. But yeah, the experience with Auburn would have a lot to do with that, and that's a huge game for. It's a huge game beyond Oregon for the Pac-12. They need an Auburn trophy at some point, or certainly an SEC trophy for them. And then at Auburn, the last thing Gus needs, Trav, is start the season off with a loss, say struggle at quarterback, and that offense look anything like it did last year.
One thing Malzahn has shown in the last year or two is that he can beat a highly regarded Pac-12 opponent on a neutral field. We saw that to start the 2018 season when the Tigers took care of the Huskies of Washington over at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'll tell you another one of these early season lines and games that, in my opinion, is going to go a long way in impacting a mid-September game that Alabama will be on the road for, and that's South Carolina and North Carolina in Charlotte. For me, in Will Muschamp, I wouldn't say it's a must-win for Muschamp, but if you don't beat North Carolina there, and you go home and you take care of a Charlotte team, I guess it is, in week 2 or the like, I think South Carolina, I think Muschamp desperately needs to be 2-0 going into that Alabama game on September the 14th.
Well, and see, what's dangerous for him is if he's not 2-0, Trav, they've got Bama at home, at Missouri, and then Kentucky at Georgia, and then Florida in a row. What kind of heat would he be under, Trav, by after that Florida game on October 19th, if they've only won one game at that point?
Yeah, when you talk about important openers and tone setters for some coaches in the SEC, I think South Carolina, North Carolina for Muschamp. For Malzahn, certainly Oregon qualifies in an opener. But because as you outlined, things just don't get easier for these teams, especially Auburn. And I think even Ed Orgeron in week 2 qualifies with Texas on the road. I mean, there is some absolute important football games for these teams. How about Jeff Collins getting out of the SEC a little bit? Jeff Collins going to open his stint as the successor to Paul Johnson as head coach at Georgia Tech as a 33.5-point underdog on the road at Clemson.
And that's a Thursday night game also, which makes that kind of interesting because we'll be able to see it without covering a game. I'll say this about Tech and where they're going. There's probably more excitement about Tech right now, although I still think Paul Johnson's a pretty good football coach and appreciate what he actually got done there. But Collins has done well so far in recruiting. They had a record crowd. I mean, Travis, as far as record crowd to go for Georgia Tech in their spring game. But and listen, here's the reverse of the schedule, though. They've got, after the Clemson game, South Florida, the Citadel, at Temple, North Carolina, and then at Duke. I mean, look, if they split those games at least, that will be a decent start for Jeff Collins in his first year.
I'm conflicted with Georgia Tech. I talked about it a week or so ago here on the program with Tech under Jeff Collins. I think under Jeff Collins with Brent Key, former member of the Alabama coaching staff who went over to join Collins at his alma mater there on the Flats. I think under Jeff Collins, Tech will be better equipped to challenge in the Atlantic Coast Conference. But at the same time, I think Tech under Collins will be an easier prepare and matchup for Georgia. So if I'm a Tech fan right now, I'm excited about the potential to be more of a consistent competitor within the league. But at the same time, if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm thinking, hey, that's fine. We don't have to prepare for Paul Johnson in the triple option going into the final week of the regular season. We'll take that every day of the week because the reality is, and Jeff Collins and Brent Key, they'll recruit at a pretty high level over there.
Yes.
But they're not going to recruit at Georgia's level. They're not going to have Georgia's personnel. And they're going to try to beat Georgia with lesser athletes and players with the same type of system. I don't see that working out all that well. But, yeah, from a conference perspective, absolutely, I think Tech has the potential to do that. It's pretty much wide open right now beyond Clemson. Hey, Brent, not sure if you saw this, but Hard Knocks for the upcoming series on HBO has selected the Oakland Raiders to be the focal point of that upcoming series. Hey, if you could pick a college team that Hard Knocks did its thing with, who would you want to see on Hard Knocks from the college perspective right now?
Would you, Trev? Would you want to see either O and LSU, particularly if this passing game under Brady coming from the Saints is effective? I mean, there's always a little bit of interest in Les Miles with how bad it could be at Kansas, something of that nature. But I would listen. Wouldn't you love to see the Pirate and Washington State in this, just to see what he would say all the time, and particularly to his players and coaches when he's not thinking about it.
Yeah, as far as personalities, that's where Gruden's going to be really good, and you got Antonio Brown and that whole situation now in Oakland. But yeah, Leach would be a lot of fun. O would be incredible to be able to sit in on LSU staff meetings and try to figure out what's going on with O. But from a pure what the heck is going on perspective, I'd like to see what's up at Florida State right now. Going into year 2 with Willie Taggart, just from that standpoint of what's happening here, I might go with Florida State after that just abysmal rookie campaign there with the Seminoles for Willie Taggart. Well, as always, Brent, we appreciate the insight, the information. It's always great. Does a great job of doing it on a daily basis at College Sports Today and also with First Coast News. Hey, Brent, we'll catch up with you soon down at the beach. You're going to have to help me sort of sheriff rein in Pops there maybe for a day or two down there.
Well, I'd be delighted to make that attempt. And Trav, also, you can comment on this later. News about Tennessee, another offensive lineman having to retire because of medical issues. We still don't know about Trey Smith. You mentioned this a few minutes ago. That season for Tennessee is kind of teetering right now with that offensive line situation, is it not?
No choice. And again, a reason why when we talked about this in terms of SEC team most dependent on true freshmen for the upcoming season, when you talk critical spots in the offensive tackle position certainly qualify, Wanye Morris and Darnell Wright need to play up to their 5-star billing very quickly, it would seem, in 2019. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Brent.
My pleasure, pal. Take care.